Real quick before we get started, if you guys need a recap to Season 1, just hit the little tab that opened up in the upper right-hand corner. That'll take you to the recap. Now, with the events that took place at the end of Season 1, the downfall was substantial. Alex ended up walking away from the morning show and just living in Maine. She hadn't talked to Bradley since that day. Chip went to go work for a new station, WVXT. He's got a new girlfriend, and he's planning on proposing on New Year's Eve. Which, I'll tell you right now, she says yes. They always do. Claire also left the show. After finding one of her best friends dead, she decided it wasn't for her. She's currently studying for her GRE. And then there's Corey. Now, Corey was initially fired, with Fred being put on administrative leave. It was something that Corey could not believe, but while the board thought Fred was guilty, they couldn't prove it. What they could prove was the fact that Corey came in and their show kind of went to hell in a handbasket, so they let him go. But he was actually brought back after Bradley threw a conniption fit. So the show picks up 8 months after the end of Season 1. It's New Year's Eve. They've replaced Alex with another anchor named Eric. But while they prepare for their big New Year's show, which will be hosted by Eric and Bradley, the big story that everybody's talking about is the fact that their nighttime anchor, Ray Marcus, has been accused of emotional abuse. So they're going to have to replace Ray. He's been on, quote, vacation, so it's not like UBA didn't know about this, but now that the story's out, it's a pretty big deal. On top of it, Maggie Brenner is writing a book, and it's about everything that's happened in the news industry, and this could possibly be another chapter in it. So Corey ends up getting a team with Legal together, along with Mia Jordan, and a new UBA employee named Stella, who seems like she's one step above Mia Jordan. The plan that they have right now is to put Eric on evening news. Now the issue is, who do they pair with Bradley? And their short list is down to 2 people because the third person they had in mind doesn't want to work with Bradley, which brings up the elephant in the room, is Bradley cutting it. Her contract is up in a couple months, and ratings are down for the show. Mia poses the question of keeping Eric on the morning show and putting Bradley at nighttime, mainly because she has this thirst to do actual news stories where a morning show is more puff pieces. Some of the people in the room actually laugh at this idea, because the fact is, Bradley has been kind of a loose cannon, uncoachable. Mia says, I love Bradley, but she needs the polish of a seasoned anchor like Alex to balance her out. And that's when Corey gets the bright idea, well, then we'll just get Alex back. But that's going to be easier said than done, because no one's talked to Alex in 8 months, and the last time UBA heard from Alex, it was a stern, no, I'm not coming back. And then you've got people like Stella who think that Alex is just flat out cooked. But the fact remains, if Corey wants Alex, he's got his work cut out for him. After his meeting with Mia and Stella and Legal, Corey heads on to focus on the new streaming service they've launched, UBA+. He's trying to get rights for shows and rights for movies, and it's stressful. But his quest for content gets interrupted when Bradley walks in uninvited. And like a good exec, Corey acts like he is thrilled to see her. And she's shown up to hint at the fact that she would be interested in the nighttime chair. At this point, Bradley feels like she's done her part. She's done a lot of the puff pieces they wanted her to. She even dyed her hair. And Corey kind of owes her one because he'd be out of a job if it wasn't for her going to bat for him. But Corey gives her a lot of fluff. But ultimately, he tells her, I can't move you. Bradley accepts it and even starts to talk herself into staying on the morning show because she feels like her and Eric really complement each other. She feels like her and Eric are a better match than her and Alex. But Corey tells her, well, you and Alex had a good thing there for a little bit, and who knows what would have happened if you kept it going. And Bradley has to admit, yeah, that's true. After Bradley leaves his office, now it's time to find her a partner, and he heads up to Maine, where Alex is very surprised to see him. She's been busy writing a memoir that hasn't really got a lot of traction because she won't talk about the Mitch situation. And her agent reminds her, this is why people are going to buy books, because of the Mitch situation. So you need to write about it. But she's hesitant to. She's definitely very surprised, though, when Corey pulls up in his car. And he doesn't sugarcoat it. He just comes right out and says, I need you to come back for a year. Bradley's doing okay, but she's not testing great. Ratings haven't been good. And we're taking Eric for the evening news. Alex asks him, is Bradley upset? And Corey says, well, she will be. And Alex is totally turned off by the fact that they haven't even told Bradley yet. He tries to get the conversation, though, back on track, saying that it wouldn't be like before. It would be a whole new deal. Alex will be a big voice in the rebranding of UBA. He tells her, you were all we ever needed and we were too stupid to realize it, so please come back. But she says no. While she agrees with everything that he said, she feels like if she comes back, it'll look a little wishy-washy. And he says, no, when your new deal gets announced, you're going to look like a genius. She still, though, says no. He makes one last-ditch effort before he leaves, telling her, just think about it for 24 hours, but it seems like her mind is pretty made up that she doesn't want to come back to UBA. So with Alex saying no, Corey heads back to the UBA office where he meets with Stella, and now they have to go to their plan C, or plan D at this point. The next in line is an anchor named Aaron, and Corey tells Stella, just hold off on closing any kind of deal with him. Stella thinks it's because Corey hasn't told Bradley, and that's part of it, but it more so has to do with the fact Corey hasn't given up on Alex. He told her to wait 24 hours, and it definitely has not been 24 hours. And while Corey was busy trying to lure Alex back, Mia was busy putting together the end-of-the-year montage for 2019. And it's very ironic because she says, man, this year sucked. She has no idea what's waiting for her in 2020. They do agree, though, that they should probably put themselves in the news, but more so with Alex and Bradley's rogue segment than anything else. She ends up running into Bradley when she's doing this, and Bradley thanks her because Bradley knows she can be difficult, and it hasn't always been easy working with her, but Mia's always been there, standing by her, having her back, so she decides to thank her for that. Bradley has to get ready, though, because that night is the big ball drop. As she's hosting with Eric, Corey is stuck in traffic trying to get to the set. While he's doing so, Stella texts him that they're close to closing the deal with Aaron, and he's excited to work with Bradley. But Corey texts her back, just give me an hour. He calls Alex, but he gets her voicemail, so he decides to leave her this 11th hour plea to come back and work with UBA. Back over actually on set, though, Bradley's having the time of her life, but something has been eating Eric up. It's the fact that he's leaving and Bradley doesn't know. He knows he's not supposed to tell her, but he can't hold it from her anymore. He finally comes clean. Bradley, I'm going to the evening news. And Bradley can't believe that it seems like everybody else knew about it except her. She looks like a fool. So she's pretty pissed off. And unfortunately for Corey, when he arrives, he's the first person she sees. She screams at him, you lied to me. You put Eric in the nightly news, and apparently everybody knows about it except me. He starts telling her how she needs to trust him because he has her best interest in mind. But she starts screaming back at him. And finally, he kind of has a little bit of a mini breakdown by saying, you know what? This job is hard. I know it doesn't seem like it to you because every time you come into my office, I have a Cheshire Cat grin on my face. But it's an act because when I took over, they didn't give me a Maybach. They gave me a rat with holes in it. And it's my job to fix it. So I'm trying to conjure Noah's Ark out of thin air. And honestly, I think I'm doing a pretty good job of it. And honestly, I had hopes that me and you would walk onto that ark together. She kind of looks at him cross-eyed and says, is this the part where I'm supposed to thank you for giving me my big break? Because I'll remind you, you only have this job because of me. And Corey kind of takes this in and says, man, you are so certain you know how the world works. It's amazing. You seem to think that your friends, and I'm counting myself in this, but your friends are out to get you. She corrects him, though, saying, we are not friends because all you had to do to be my friend was be honest to me. Turns out, though, you're just the weasel that everybody said you were. And that's when Corey gets real serious and poses the question, did it ever occur to you that I can't tell you everything because you're obsessed with telling the truth and I don't know what's going to leak out? And I also can't tell you how other people feel about you because your ego is too fragile where you go running off and crying. You never seem to process that information into something constructive. This ends with Bradley telling him to go fuck himself and storming off to go watch the ball drop. But back up in Maine, Alex went to a neighbor's New Year's Eve party, and as she was leaving, she saw that she had a missed call from Corey. When she listens to it, she hears that 11th hour plea from him. Corey decided to go with the poetry tactic. And it works. As Bradley and Eric are counting down the ball to being dropped to 2020, Alex ends up calling Corey back. Corey tells her, we want to be in the Alex Levy business no matter what. Look, our deal fell through with Eric's replacement. We're in a bind. You've done the morning show and you've graduated and you've earned the right to move on. Could you please come back and fill in until you're ready to launch your new primetime show? And Alex is crying and tells Corey, listen, let's talk tomorrow. And Corey excitedly says, Alex, I will call you tomorrow. You will not be sorry, Alex. The last question that she asks him is, Corey, can I trust you? And he says yes. And at that moment, it's 2020, which you feel bad for him because you know what they're walking into. As soon as he gets off the phone with Alex, he calls Stella and says, kill the deal with Aaron. I'll explain everything tomorrow, but kill it. It's a new year, Stella. Things are looking up. But it doesn't even take 1 second for that statement to become a freezing cold take. Because as Corey looks up on the ticker in Times Square, he sees that Hannah's family has filed a wrongful death suit against UBA. And that is yet another issue that he's going to have to deal with. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.